Good morning, everybody. It's a beautiful fall morning in Nebraska, and the cooler weather gets me even more in the mood to carve. And so we're going to start a new carving series on a hen wood duck. Previously, I did a Drake wood duck how to carve series, if you want to refer to that. The hen is similar. This particular hen is in a tucked head position, so that'll give us, there's some unique challenges with that I want to go through. So we'll carve this bird together. If you're enjoying my channel and getting value out of it, please hit the subscribe button. I appreciate that. It's free. And I'm really developing this channel with resources for people that might want to carve or are carving, that it might help somebody out. I want to pause and give a little bit of a pitch for why carve. Some of you out there have said you're kind of on the edge of, do I really want to try that? Allow me to give you a brief sales pitch on why I think carving is a great hobby. Number one, if you appreciate wildfowl, it's a way to celebrate the bird. And as you carve and paint a particular species, you learn more about it. You develop a new appreciation, basically, for the bird when you try to create it with your own hands. Number two, you have something when you're done to show for your efforts. I have nothing against golf or video games or some other types of hobbies. I enjoy those. But this particular hobby, when you're done, you have something to show for your efforts. You can sell to others, you can gift to somebody, you can display it for yourself, but you have something to show for your efforts. Number three, if you hunt, it's one of the biggest thrills I've ever had to create something with my hands, throw it out there and see the birds react to that. When I started carving wooden fishing lures, and it's kind of the same thrill. Yeah, you can buy a plastic lure, and those are probably more effective, but making the lure yourself, casting it out there and having a fish react to that, it just gives you a little bit of a thrill. Same thing with handmade decoys. If you're a hunter and considering that, I really would encourage you to give it a try. Just make one, throw it out in your spread. I did that with some golden eyes, and when the golden eyes dropped into those three birds, I still think about that. Big thrill. Okay, number four, it's a creative outlet. A lot of you are still working, and I started when I was working. I had a family. Those are the priorities. But as I've become retired, it's given me a creative outlet that I enjoy, something I look forward to, and keeps me busy along with the other things that I do. So that's number four. Number five, some of the best friends I have are people that I met as a part of competing at shows, and are like-minded in terms of loving to carve wildfowl. So it gives me contacts all around the country that I appreciate the friendships that have developed through this hobby. Okay, enough of a sales pitch, but that's important. That's an important part of this channel, is encouraging others to give it a try. I think you'll really enjoy it. Now, let's bring the camera in close. I've got a study bill. It happens to be a drake. I don't have a hen wood duck study bill, but the geometry is going to be very similar. So let's take a look at the study bill and do some layout work on the head. Welcome back. Okay, let's take a quick look at the study bill in case you don't have one. This might be helpful. Really an angled area up here into the face, pretty close to the eye there. And then there's this raised ridge area that kind of fades out down here, and that has some wrinkles in it, so we're going to want to carve that in. The nostril Doesn't have a ton of structure around it. Pretty subtle. You can see the V-notch pretty wide set up here, and you can see that fleshy area that comes out away from the crown of the head. The nail is pretty large, and you can see the bill is angled at the tip around the nail, and then there's a little bit of an indentation here on top of the bill. One other thing from the side, I hope you can see this. Get the light in here a little better. From the side, the nail goes up. Make sure I'm in camera. It goes up, back down, then a little bit of upturn in the corner. And you can see the tip of the lower mandible here from the side. So we're going to want to make sure and carve that detail in. Underneath, pretty deep, and the feathering comes up in a V shape here. So hopefully those details help those of you that don't have a study bill. I really encourage you to get one. You can get a study bill from the James Company if you're looking for an outlet. Now, he doesn't pay me to say that. He's just a great supplier to the wildfowl carving community. All right, let's do some layout work. All right, I've got my top-down profile above and below a center line to keep things symmetrical. And I mentioned the study bill is a drake, so the bill is a little bit larger than the hen pattern. And so I'm going to use this kind of as reference, but I'm not going to take dimensions off the drake's bill, obviously. So I've got a dimension where the bill meets the face here. Put that on both sides. And pencil that in so I can see it, so you can see it. I'm going to draw the same arc on the pattern, just so I can see that arc here and kind of relate it to the arc I have here. So this bill is going to come back in, come back out to that reference point, and then down here we'll go back underneath. So we'll sketch that out later. Right now I just want to start removing wood, and I wanted to sketch that in so when I draw this line, I'm not cutting out some critical piece of wood that I'm going to need later. Now I'm using my bandsaw line just to draw across and meet up with the bill profile. Same thing underneath. So I can get that cut in the same position on both sides. Now we can use the coping saw to remove material around the bill, and then we're going to want to come back from that area a little past the eye here. And then in the back, the crest is very much comes to a point back here as it tucks into the cape feathers on the head. I don't want a razor point at this point. I can always remove more wood later, but I want to begin to develop that crest as it tucks on the back. And then I want to sketch in the cheek here. The cheek doesn't come way back here, it drops. Let me just get a quick reference dimension from the pattern that I drew. My hands are right in the way, I realize, but I'm getting a reference dimension of the back of the cheek to the back of the crest there. So I know it comes back about that far on both sides. So roughly in that position, right through the eye and up through the eye channel. I want to keep that in front of me as I'm removing wood here from the top down, because I don't want to cut this too deep and end up with skinny cheeks back here, if that makes sense. So I'm going to drop a vertical, kind of a rough sketched vertical from the back of the cheek up to the top and across on both sides. Just so I can keep those as reference dimensions as I'm doing my cuts here, so I don't go too far. Same thing here, I'll just drop a vertical from just behind the eye here, because I want to leave this material intact for a nice full cheek. And if I cut back too far, the width of the head is going to suffer. That's kind of the general layout procedure I do on all my heads, so that now I'm ready to do some coping. One other thing I want to consider, along with penciling in the bill here, is I'm not going to have to worry too much about cutting too much off under here. I'll just come back to those guidelines. And there's actually no neck. If there was a neck on this bird, I would pencil that in at this time, but this head is nestled right against the breast and the cape feathers, so I don't have to worry about the neck down here. All right, let's do some coping. All right, I'm going to use my coping saw and carefully cut just outside of my lines so that I have a little wood to work with when I'm sanding and finishing. I'm checking underneath to make sure I'm not undercutting or overcutting the bill. Bringing it right to that line. You go slowly as you approach the face of the bird here, or the junction point, so that we don't gouge the side. Now I'm going to go from that point, follow my guidelines. I'm kind of targeting exiting right at that guideline. This is not really precise, because we'll be able to grind this to shape, but this is just getting wood out of the way that we won't have to carve off. Okay, I'll do the same thing on this side, and then we'll flip it around and do the back. Now I'm going to do the back, and again, I'm not going to go to a razor point here. I want to leave wood for carving, and I'm going to hit this exit line for my cut. That's the theory. And that leaves the cheek at full width here, which is what we want. So I'll do this side. Just a quick look at those 4 angled cuts. Do a little layout work on the V notch here. I know from my reference it's about a 1/2 inch wide at the top. I've got that penciled in. And then I want to get a reference point on the side here as well. So I'm going to get a dimension from the tip of the bill to the tip of the upper part of the V notch there, and just transfer that onto the carving just so I have a reference point. I know it comes back about that far on the side. Same thing here. I know this line continues on up and then goes about that far into the face and back out to our reference point here at the cheek. So I'll take this wood out right in this area, leave the V-notch area high, following the profile of the pattern, and begin to shape that up. The other thing I want to pencil in is the width of the crown, which I know is 1.5 inches. So I've got that around the center line, and I know that ties into the top of the V-notch here. And then it's going to fade out as we go to the back of the crest. So there'll actually be a little bit of a ridge on the top of the crest there when we're done. Okay, now I can work on the V-notch with some grinding equipment and then take the width of the crown down to that guideline and leave the cheek high. All right, I'm going to start with this little cylindrical ruby bit, and this is at 2x speed, and I'm using the edge of that bit to follow the V-notch there and lower this area on either side to bring it down to that level that I've penciled in on the side. Same on this side. And I like this little 1/8 inch cylinder ruby because it's got grit on the end of it as well as the side, so it's really a nice tool for this purpose. Now I'm just rounding that area of the V-notch. I'm going to re-pencil this in so I can get a good look at symmetry. And now I'm going to use the same bit and follow my guidelines down each side to begin to shape the side of the bill and define where that meets the face. So I'll work on that a little bit and then come back. Now I'm going to use a 3/4 inch saber-tooth burr, cylindrical in shape, and use that to narrow the crown. And I want to mention, I'm running this at normal speed. This head is in a tuck position, so there's not much to hold on to here. And you can see the burr is relatively close to my hands. You may choose to use a glove to protect your hand. I'm just going very slowly. You could also put a handle on this so that you could keep your hands farther away. I just wanted to mention that word of caution because this head is not very big, so I just have to be very careful that I don't hit my hand with the burr and have an injury. So I've got that front shaped up. Now I'm going to shape up the cheek here a little bit with the nose of that cylindrical ball nose bit. And now I can narrow the crown. And again, I'm going to keep this at actual speed just so you can see how slowly I'm going at this. I'm not pressing the burr very hard. I'm just going to take wood off a little bit at a time. And you can see I'm maintaining a firm grip on that head and keeping my hands out of the way of the burr. Now I'm fairing in that crest area where it meets the cheek. Narrowing this up a bit in back. I've still got work to do here to narrow the crown a bit and meet my penciled guideline. So you can't see a lot in this video shot. A little better view there. You can see I'm just working to define the cheek and hit this line above. And now I'm going to flip the bird around and just round this cheek area carefully. And since this is in a tucked head position, none of the neck is exposed. The head is going to tuck down onto the breast. So I'm going to leave it wide at the bottom. I may take a little bit off the bottom just to give it a little bit of a rounded shape so that we don't have that cheek just coming down on a hard vertical. Okay, I'm basically shaping this head up to hit that. I'm going to work on the other side and then we'll come back. Now I'm at 2 times speed and I'm going to use this 1/2 inch sanding drum with 150 grit and use it to smooth everything out, but also finish the shaping. I'm going to carefully round the bill, and as I mentioned, when I coped the bill out, I left a little bit of extra wood there, and that's so that as we sand things like this, we're not narrowing the bill up too much. I'm just going to use this sanding drum over the entire head to smooth things out before we go to the next step. So I'll jump ahead. All right, I've got the head generally sanded and nicely rounded, and checking symmetry and making sure everything looks good. And now we can work on a little more of the bill details here on the side. All right, I want to go back to my pattern and establish this dimension from the tip of the bill to the tip of the V here and make sure I've got that located properly and make sure it's located the same distance from side to side. I'm going to repencil that in and keep refining that until we get that shape right. So I'll go back to my 1/8 inch cylindrical ruby, and I'm using the edge of that ruby to kind of follow my pencil lines so that we begin to define the bill as it meets the face here. And as I cut that groove, then I'm going back and rounding or taking material off of the bill going forward and then rounding the face as it meets the bill so that we have a nice transition there. So I'm going to clean up this V-notch area so that it's well defined and round this area. Same thing on this side. I'm going to speed up the video here. So I'll just go back and forth and clean this up until I'm satisfied that I'm matching up with my pattern and I've got things defined. I'm going to go back with my pencil, take a look at symmetry again, just makes it more visible. See if I need to make any final adjustments. And then I'll go ahead and use my 1/2-inch sanding drum to smooth things out up there. You have to go at this with a very light touch so that we don't cut material out here. We're just rounding things off and smoothing them out. All right, now I want to go back to my pattern and establish the corner here between the upper and lower mandible. From the tip of the bill back to that area and transfer that to the wood on both sides. And then take a look at this little area. It's kind of a notch that goes back there. It doesn't go back very far. And we're going to take wood out on both sides in this area. And I'm using my little 1/8 inch ruby bit to remove the material in that area. And then fade that into the line that we've already established up on top of the bill there. Use the edge of this bit to soften these lines and make sure I don't have any hard shelves there. Recheck that dimension and give myself a guideline on the corner there. And now I want to pencil in the lower edge of the upper mandible. I've got a little more cleanup to do there before I get that done. I'll pencil in the upper mandible so that we can cut that in. Okay, I'm going to go back to my dividers, back to the pattern, just reestablish the distance here and mark that on the bird now that we have that area relieved. And I'm marking where the corner is there, where the upper and lower mandible meet. I'm going to check there's a little upturn here. And as we talked about earlier, there's a little bit of the tip of the lower mandible showing from the side. So I want this gentle curve. And I'm going to curve up here and back down at the nail so that you can see a little bit of the lower mandible from the side. There's not much wood to work with here, but that's okay. All right, now we're going to use the knife. I'll get over here on the bench where I've got a nice firm rest for the head, and I'm going to score along that pencil line very carefully. You need a light touch here. If I push too hard, I can just rip off the lower mandible with a good sharp knife, and we don't want that, obviously. So I'm just following my line, and I'll score this multiple times until I get about a 1/16 of an inch deep. Then we'll go underneath here, make a cut diagonally about a 1/16 deep, and then score along the lower edge to meet up with that score line that we did from the side, and go at this multiple times again so that we don't make a slip and take off a big chunk of wood. So you can see that just relieves that, and now we've got some definition between upper and lower. Now I want to do a little bit of work to put some structure on the lower part of the bill here, on the lower mandible. And I'm going to use a very small cylinder first to clean up this edge, this knife edge, where the tips of the upper and lower mandible meet here. Just put a little bit of definition there to show some separation between the upper and lower mandible. That's a very small cylindrical ruby I'm using. Now I can use it to clean up the lower mandible and round it a bit. I'm just cleaning up the corner there where the knife often leaves a little bit of some roughness, and so I need to clean that up where this lower mandible comes out of the face. And then I need to cut in the lower mandible here on each side to create a little bit of a V-notch underneath here in this area. And this won't take much, but just just remove a little bit of wood here to define the lower mandible where it meets the chin of the face. Just take out a little bit on each side. And begin to form that V underneath the lower mandible. All right, well, I think that's a good place to end session 1 of carving the hen wood duck. We've got the head roughed out, and in session 2, we'll go into the details of the head, get the eyes mounted, get the head finished up, and probably get started on the body. Until then, Tom Christie signing out. Good carving to you.